Hi, everyone, and welcome to part 1 of 3 of my profile of the amazing Thelma Todd. She's in my book, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Dead, and she was the basis for my novel, Goodbye, Angel, Goodbye. Her mysterious death has baffled Hollywood for decades. Let's take a look why. Hey everyone, I'm back. Sorry I was missing in action. Just a personal medical thing with my eye. Really not back yet, and this pupil's bigger than this pupil. If you guys are really paying attention, that's why. But I'm back, and on a sad week, on the heels of the tragedy that happened in Hollywood and Brentwood last week with Rob Reiner and his wife. But I'm not going to talk about that. I talk about it in a separate video. Today, we're going to talk about a star that is not only in one of my books, she is also the inspiration for my novel, Goodbye, Angel, Goodbye. She was a quirky, funny, beautiful star, and her name was Thelma Todd. She was also known as the Hot Toddy. But before we get into Thelma Todd, please do all of the things. Like the video. Talk to me in the comments. Let me know if you've ever seen a movie by Thelma Todd, or if you've ever heard of Thelma Todd, or if you've ever heard of this mysterious death of hers. Was she done in by the mob, or was it somebody closer? Let's take a look at the life and times and sad and mysterious end of Thelma Todd. So let's talk a little bit about Thelma Todd. She's sort of an enigma. She was born in Lawrence, Massachusetts, which was kind of an industrial type of town. But she was just this little wispy thing and kind of didn't fit in with this big, heavy, industrialized environment that she was born into. She was born in 1906. Her father, John Shaw Todd, was an upholsterer from Ireland, and later a superintendent of streets, an alderman, and Lawrence Commissioner of Health and Charities. And her mother was an immigrant from Canada. So she had an older brother, and this is something that kind of affected the rest of her parents greatly. She had an older brother, but he died in an accident in 1910. Like, Thelma must have been 4 years old, and this had an effect on her parents, so they focused all their attention on Thelma Todd, particularly the mother. And the mother recognized very early on that Thelma was beautiful and very talented. So she began taking her to talent shows and showing her daughter off at a very young age. Yes, we have the buddings of a stage mother, okay? So I'm going to read a little bit in my book about Thelma Todd's early years. Delicate and wispy, she had creamy skin and long flowing blonde hair, an elegantly radiant butterfly in a tough industrial town who charmed everyone she met. The Todd family lived next door to the town's poorhouse, and Thelma could often be found there cheering up the disadvantaged with her sunny disposition. A bright girl, she had a knack for academics, eventually deciding to become a teacher. That's a noble profession. She enrolled at the Laurel Norman School to earn a teaching degree. However, Mommy Todd had other ideas and felt her beautiful daughter would be wasted as a schoolmarm. So Mommy Todd encouraged her to enter beauty contests before it was too late, egads. Oh, look, another stage mother determined to live vicariously through her offspring. Thelma was gorgeous, so she had no trouble winning a few of these contests, including Miss Massachusetts. This win got her noticed by a Hollywood talent scout, to the delight of Alice Todd. He suggested she come to La La Land and try her luck in films, which of course she did. And her domineering mother their domineering mother shoving her forward the whole way. This is in my novel. This very scene actually is how my book, one of the very first chapters in my book, is how Hazel Champagne, I based Hazel Champagne on Thelma Todd loosely, and she's auditioning for a beauty pageant place, and this man named Eddie sees her, and he becomes totally and completely infatuated with her, and that's how the novel began. And he talks her and her mom into coming out to Hollywood. She's still very young. I think she's like 16 at this point. I'm not sure how old the real Thelma Todd was, but anyway. So Thelma Todd comes out to Hollywood. She's beautiful. She's funny, and she gets work in the silent movies right away. So initially, she was regulated to minor roles, because at this time Hollywood was really into the dark, exotic beauties like Paula Negre and Alice Nazimova and people like that, who were, a lot of them were from Eastern Europe, and they had these dark, exotic looks. And other actresses who weren't like that tried to copy that, like Gloria Swanson. And blondes were really not the thing at that time, and she was blonde and fair, and so they weren't really sure what to do with her. But a little later on, towards the mid to late 20s, she found her niche, and that was in comedy shorts. She was a brilliant comedian. She did really, really well in this genre. And this is when her career began to take off. She partnered with famous comedian Zazu Pitts. The two made several shorts together. She partnered with some of the biggest legends of the day. I'm going to read this part in my book. She soon found her calling as a comedic actress. She worked with some of the comedy legends of the day, including Buster Keaton, Harry Landon, whose signature character resembled Charlie Chaplin's, Billy Dove, and Charlie Chase. Todd's bubbly innocence helped propel her to mainstream stardom, and she easily transitioned from silent films to talkies. She bobbed and pinned her hair, shortened her skirts, and flirted her way across the screen in one comedy after another. She worked with the stellar comedy duo of Laurel and Hardy, providing a perfect foil for their slapstick mayhem. Signing in 1929 with Hal Roach Studios, she made several films with the Marx Brothers and other legends before teaming up with wonderful Zazu Pitts for a string of comedy shorts. Thelma's thick New England accent was often poorly masked by her imitation of upper-class speech, resulting in some fairly amateurish and exaggerated performances. She was not a great actress, but she was pretty, perky, and enjoyable to watch. The Pitts-Todd comedy team churned out several popular and profitable shorts. So Thelma Todd's career was going well, but she was getting pretty sick and tired of her stage mom's constant influence over her life. She was an adult by now. She wanted to make her own decisions. She wanted to do what she wanted to do. But Mom and her were living together, not an ideal situation. And Mom was constantly rejecting her new Hollywood friends because they weren't good enough for her upper-class daughter. She felt they were trash. They all came from trash, and I don't know, she's partly right about that. A lot of them did come from some pretty hard circumstances. They weren't exactly the cream of society. That's why Hollywood formed its own society, okay? So yeah, none of them would ever make it into Mrs. Astor's ballroom, but they had their own ballrooms in their own society and their own little cliques, and you had to be invited. And Thelma Todd was welcome into this world, but her mom did not approve. So Thelma Todd began to drink. And, we're talking, she's probably maybe 20 now, 25. And she's starting to drink pretty heavily, carrying her own flask around, actually. She got a reputation for being a, quote, party girl, unquote, which was a euphemism for alcoholic and promiscuous. And in order to completely escape her mother, like a lot of girls of this time did, including Elizabeth Taylor, a lot of girls between 1920s and the 1950s did this, okay, to get away from their parents. What did? They sought refuge in a bad marriage. That's what Thelma Todd did. She married a guy named Pat DiCicco. I guess that's how you pronounce it. DICICCO. DiCicco. And he was a loosely talent producer, but actually just a mob person. He was a low life in the mob. He wasn't a real, like big mobster or anything. It wasn't Bugsy Siegel or anything. Okay, he was a lower life. And he saw a naive girl when he saw one, and so he got his hooks into her, and they ended up getting married, and he was very abusive to her. And I think this marriage, I don't know how long this marriage lasted, but wasn't good times when she got married to him. She sort of went from controlling mother to controlling abusive husband, okay? And yeah, that wasn't good times. In part 2 of my video on Thelma Todd, we're going to find out what happened in her personal life that led to her untimely and early death, the prophetic words that Groucho Marx spoke to her in a movie, and how it all came crashing down on top of that hill in Pacific Palisades.